So good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 21 of Meet the Judge. And before I introduce my guest tonight, I'd just like to say that it was with great sadness that we learned yesterday, Friday the 13th, that Anne Doyle passed away after a long battle with illness. To the world of dogs, Anne, along with Austin, will be synonymous with St. Bernard's under the Longs-Doyle prefix, which produced many Irish and international champions.
Yes.
Indeed, Anne, along with Austin, hold the record for the most qualification for Champion of Champions, winning it at least twice. Of late, Anne, along with Christina, enjoyed much success with Pumi, and she also enjoyed a lifelong passion for Irish setters. I had the privilege some years ago to announce Anne's all-breed status, a status she truly deserved. A very knowledgeable, popular and well-respected judge, both here and abroad. To her friends, Anne was loyal and true blue, always a smile on her face at shows, and always a great greeting when you met her. And she also had a wicked sense of humour. I know you will join me in sending our heartfelt condolences and love to Austin and Christina at this sad time. The world of dogs is at a loss today. Rest in peace, Anne. My guest tonight needs no introduction to most people. Very multi-talented person, a breeder, exhibitor, journalist, editor of Irish Canine Press and RMD Photography, and a wonderful canine photographer. Good evening, Joyce.
Hi, Colin.
How are you?
Not too bad. Bored, yes. Housebound.
You knew Anne, Joyce?
Yes, I did. Long time. Had quite a bit of fun, especially on the circuit and in and out of motorhomes, making sure that the wine was all right and plenty of fun. She was as bright as a button. She always had a smile on her face. She never seemed to get fed up. And even whenever she was diagnosed, she still kept going, which was something that a lot of us should, respect very much.
Yes.
Very sorry for Austin and Christina. Must be
it's a sad day for Irish dogs.
That's right.
It really is. And we touched base on this with all our interviewees. The situation in the north in terms of COVID. I know down here we have an improving situation. We're down below 1 now. But you're still struggling up there.
It's not working very well, and there's a lot of arguments, and I am going to kill my husband. They can't agree what's going to be, whether they're going to keep the thing on or off, or whether they're going to lock down for any longer. Their prime consideration is they must keep the kids at school, but they're also very concerned about the economy. I have my own views on that. I think I know the economy is important, and I know that the catering and the pubs, restaurants, hotels are suffering dreadfully, as are, I'm sure, their staff. But by the same token, I think they've got to get their teeth into this and really sort it. And down your way, you've managed to prove a point. Up here, it seems to be going a bit daft. And now we're opening coffee shops, etc., are opening next Friday, and then the following Friday, pubs, etc., are opening. That's maybe going to make a mess for Christmas.
Yes.
Everybody seems to be aiming for Christmas, and I mean, I know Christmas is a big thing, but I would think that Christmas maybe could take a bit of a back seat in order to make sure that an awful lot of people are here to celebrate it next year.
Well, I think down here, yes, certainly we're aiming for Christmas, but on a sort of a more limited basis, that at least family that are resident in Ireland are going to be at least be able to get together in some format. I don't personally think people will be allowed to fly back, but certainly if I think that the idea is that within certainly the 26 counties or whatever, they will be able to travel. I think that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
But I don't know where you're going.
You're going to have a lot of students in England that want to come home for Christmas.
Yes, but I don't see it happening myself.
No, nor do I.
So anyway, Joyce, to kick off, we all know you have a long history within dogs. But when you were growing up, did your parents have dogs? Were they involved in dogs? My
father showed Cocker Spaniels, and I went to my first dog show in a pram when I was November, December, January, February, 5 months old. Wow. My mother shoving the pram down O'Connell Street. My father with the rear own cocker walking along in front, like all the cocker men then, with the hat, the hat on and the overcoat and all the rest of it. Mother not really joining in at all. My father kept showing for a few years after I was born, but succumbed when Mum decided that she didn't like it. So, being a good husband, he did what he was told. But I was reared with Cocker Spaniels. We always had cockers.
Can I just to prove the point, can I just compliments of Mr. Des Manton. I don't know if I can do this properly, but if we can get a shot of this. There we have a very young Joyce Manton with 2 Cocker Spaniels.
Yes, I think one was lemon.
It looks it.
Yeah.
And the other looks like a black and white or
yeah. He always wanted a black and tan, or what it was a try. I can remember. I remember he managed to get a bitch, but she turned out to have epilepsy, so we couldn't breed from her. So that broke his heart. But as I say, we had cockers for donkey's years until they sort of, I suppose, till they sort of died out. Daddy stopped breeding. But I know he had a dog, Sean. I remember Sean, and Sean's actual show name was Border Adventure.
Okay.
And he was friendly with some of the old boys, John Besant and people like that I remember from being, whenever I was young, I remember the Cocker Spaniel guys, because even though Daddy wasn't at the shows, whenever I started showing, some of them were still in the go. So they remembered me and they talked to me. Okay. And then a Min Poodle. Well, mother got a Min Poodle, and then we got German Shepherds. We always had a GSP.
And in terms of your own start, what was your first breed, and what made you choose it?
German Shepherds. I just loved them. I was, as I say, in my older years at home, we always had a shepherd, and I just sort of automatically wanted a shepherd. Though, to be honest, I had a slight trip into toy poodles.
Really?
Right at the very, very, when, what can I say, in my first life, I didn't have a dog. I just had a husband, and a house without a dog isn't a house, a home to me. And I got a toy, black toy poodle, right. A bitch that I call it Paddy, because a certain person had been at the rugby club very late, and I wanted a dog, and I rang from an advert in the local Belfast Telegraph, and I booked the dog. And whenever he came home, that was it. I just said, right, come on, we're going to get the dog. And I got Paddy, and then I had a little cream poodle as well, honey. Okay. But they were just pets, you know. But my German Shepherds were serious. I got my German Shepherd from Cedric Blackburn, Sheba Kernberg, and that started me off, and that was the bug.
And how long did it take you to start to win in the breed, or when did you cheat?
I showed Sheba a bit. I didn't show at the Irish shows for the first sort of maybe a couple of years. I remember taking my first bitch down to, I think it was the first Kilkenny Champ show, and Bernie Ladd was judging. And I remember Sheba winning, I'm sure it was Graduate Bitch in the old days whenever we had the old classes.
Yes.
And I meant to dig out a spoon that Bernie had given she'd given class prizes, and I meant to dig it out because I still have it. So it's just a silver spoon, and it had a little label in the end of it first, Graduate Bitch Kilkenny, and the date.
Right.
And I still have it all these years later.
And shepherds would have been numerically quite strong then.
Very strong. Well, I mean, I bred my first litter, and I was very, very fortunate to get a lovely bitch out of my first litter. Real beginner's luck. And she was made up. She was the youngest. She was the youngest German Shepherd champion bitch under the old system, when you actually had to work for your green stars.
Yes.
And she, in those days, you're talking 20, 30 bitches in open bitch, never mind in the breed. I hit very, very lucky, but I had a lot of help and a lot of advice. And a couple of the boys handled. I wasn't allowed to handle. I never ran round the ring, by the way, double handling, but I had a very good smoker's cough. And any of my dogs would have put their ears up from a mile away. All I had to do was so I did very well with Cleo, and I got a couple of.
So you had handlers?
Victor McGuigan handled for me. The late Eddie McClugan handled for me as well. Some of the old shepherd people might remember him. Hugh Quinn handled for me. You know Hugh. Most people will know Hugh and Pat with the min pins. I mean, he was they were both real GSD people in those days. Also very helpful.
And you mentioned that.
Games. Pardon?
You mentioned that you had a lot of people who were very helpful. So, in terms of who are the people that really influenced you when you started?
When I started showing, it was German Shepherds, and it was, the German Shepherd people were very much German Shepherd people, and kind of don't look too far outside the ring. Joyce McKenzie, Palanpur, German Shepherds, Joyce and Bertie McKenzie, they lived in Saintfield, and I remember sitting in Joyce's kitchen until 4 or 5 in the morning with the ciggies going strong, and maybe the odd wee tipple, talking shepherds into the wee hours. And she was great, and a good friend too. Very knowledgeable, and had her own ideas. I mean, Joyce didn't miss and hit the wall. She said exactly what she thought, and I appreciate people like that. She would have been the person that I would have sort of talked to and learnt more from, in general, about dogs and construction and that sort of thing. Trying to think after that, sort of Cedric Blackburn, obviously, who was the breeder of my own first bitch, Sheba.
And he appears to have been quite an influence on a lot of people.
Pardon?
He appears to have been quite an influence on quite a few people.
Yeah, Cedric had good dogs, and Cedric was prepared to go out, import, and when he brought stock in from Germany, he was very good and very influential. Yeah.
And from German Shepherds,
nice people, the pair of them too. Sorry.
and from German Shepherds, then was your next progression then into Old English?
Yes, absolutely. I bought, but actually, I had an Old English bitch bought as a pet.
Okay.
And I had her. She was never a show quality. She lived till she was about 11, Patra. And then after I'd been showing in Shepherds for a while, I actually, because I had been involved, I'd been brought up with cockers, I sort of started to take an interest in other breeds, and I would have waited for the groups. I was interested in watching the other breeds, and I would have waited for the groups and so on, and started to, made friends in other breeds as well. But in Old English, I decided I was going to get a bobtail, so I bought one from Wales. Actually, I went to Wales and brought a dog home from Wales. And that would have been
achieved quite a lot of successes within Old English.
Well, whenever Des, the boss, came on the scene, yeah, very much so.
First time I've heard to call him that.
Dyed in the wool, Old English sheepdog, lover. Between us then we were very Ryan, and he still would tease me for the way I would have called Ryan, and they all did. I made Ryan up. He was just a big plum, nice big dog. Not probably the best specimen of the breed, but he was a good starter dog for me. We were very, very lucky, Des and I. Des had English Irish champions before he and I got together, and he bred English and Irish champions as well. But we got a bitch. Our girl Dazzle, she's the one. Her photographs hanging in Clochran in our National Show Centre, and we had phenomenal luck with her.
And then you made them the unlikely move to Tibetan Terriers.
No, I had TTs. I bought a Tibetan Terrier as a pet. Oh, bless us all, many years ago, 40 years ago, maybe longer. From Janet Brown. Misty. And I love Misty. And I bred a litter out of Misty, and I asked Hard Tonks, would he come and help me choose which puppy to keep? And Hard, being Hard, said, Joyce, I'll tell you what you should do. My advice is sell the whole lot of them and go and buy yourself a decent one from England. And that's exactly what I did.
That's so hard.
Later on, it was after Dazzle. We had Dazzle was our magic, which I still can't talk about her. All these years later, she was best show Paddy's Day, and I think it was the first 2-day St. Patrick's show, about 96, and she was IKC Dog of the Year the following year. But we lost her when she was 5. We were very unlucky. Wow. She had about 8 or 9 CCs in England. She was a great bitch, but she was a beautiful, beautiful character to live with as well. And Shane and Sooty, our wee black Tibetan Terrier, they were the best of pals. In fact, the Kennel Club, Tom Creamer, commissioned. We got I was asked to send a photograph to them of Dazzle, and it was Louisa Nally.
Yes.
And Louisa did a painting for us, and Tom, the Kennel Club, presented it to us that year when she was Dog of the Year, and it was actually a very different sort of painting. Because she got on the theme of dandelions, the circular, the stuff, and in it was the wee Tibetan Terrier in the corner, land beside Dazzle. But we had great fun with her. We were lucky enough to have Dog of the Year with our big boy Bomber, and that would have been 2001. And
just for those who might not realise, back in the sort of 90s and early 2000s, Tibetan Terriers were a strong breed.
Oh yeah.
With strong characters.
Oh yeah, yes.
It was hard to get out of the breed, let alone.
Right. We were lucky. We had My Cutie Metal Mickey,
Mm-hmm.
our wee Mickey, and he was a cracking wee dog. I always remember being just being told off in the group ring or the best in show ring by Gwen Fottrell because he decided to water one of her flowers in the corner, plants in the corner of the ring. He was a great wee dog. He had several best in show all breeds. I think I could get hanged out to dry for this, but I think he was actually the first Tibetan Terrier to go all breeds best in show. And he was quite a well-known wee dog because he was a wee character, the metal Mickey. The sang his song from time to time.
In terms of your exhibiting and your showing career, what's your biggest achievement?
Of the showing career? Oh, I mean, that would have to be, I think, best in show Paddy's Day. Big thing. I mean, it was, to me, it's a privilege to be able to say that your dog or a bitch has gone best in show at your national show.
Yeah.
And I remember taking every one of the trophies home with me. That was just for well, they said that these were all on offer, and I went and I said, "Are they all on offer?" And they said yes, and I said, "Thank you, may I have them, please?" Apoplexy. No.
How many forms did you have to sign?
I think at the end of the day, I didn't actually have to sign for all of them. I think the trust had been the new wasn't actually, gone off and not coming back. Some beautiful trophies, but she'd won them, so we were proud of her. That was it. So.
And you mentioned that you've bred litters in Tibetan Terriers and obviously German Shepherds, etc., etc. So when you're choosing who to breed who to, are you a pedigree reader or do you go with your eye?
I would far rather read novels and biographies, and I am not a pedigree reader, no. I do like to, if possible, have sight of some of the ancestors of dogs that I would choose. Now, I'm inclined to, I would look at my bitch and say, right, I'd like to see an improvement in her shoulder, or I'd like more angulation, I'd like maybe a better neck, I'd like better angles or whatever. And I'd look around and see what sort of dog there may be that would suit. And I've been quite lucky. But no, I can't, to be perfectly truthful, to sit down and read pedigrees just is not, to me, it's a waste of time, personally. I mean, not that I would decry anybody for doing it, but I think what's the point of reading a pedigree unless you've actually seen the dog?
Yes. Yeah.
So I just use my eye, and that's it.
And so when did you first start judging?
I think my first appointment was about 76.
Really?
76. It was German Shepherds. It was Portadown Canine Club. And I remember getting as far as, it was an open show. I remember getting as far as Lisburn and stopping the car and thinking, I'm going home. I was absolutely terrified out of my wits. But I went ahead anyway, and there were people in the breed in those days, Jim Gervin and people like him that you may or may not remember.
I do.
And they were very, very welcoming and very, very good. And they probably knew the state I was in whenever I got to the showgrounds. And I remember Jim saying to me, go in there, girl, and enjoy yourself. And then he brought a dog in under me with 2 cc's, which I think I gave him second in his class too. I had sworn that I was going to go and judge and put up what I liked, and I did. There were possibly a few friendships on shaky ground, but I must admit the Jim and the boys afterwards came over to me and said, right, come on, you're going for a drink. You did a good job, girl. So I got over the first one, but I'm always I always get a wee bit uptight, even now, just before I actually get started.
I think we all do.
I think you have to. I think if you're overconfident, you're fooling yourself, to be perfectly honest. I'm always canny, and I like to check my breed standards. This all breeds things all very well, but sometimes I could go back many years and say, you know, it'd be lovely just to be able to go and judge the breeds that you really have owned and loved but not owned for various reasons. Because sometimes you could get in a rut judging breeds that sometimes perhaps you would rather not.
When you were starting off judging, has Des got something on there?
No.
Okay, I'm just getting a bit of feedback here. What's the best piece of advice you were given before you started judging?
I think I was just told to go into the ring and be honest. You don't look at your friends and say, oh, I will have got to put them up. You've got to be honest. And I've tried to stick to that all the days that I've judged. Some people may think that I haven't, but I have gone to a show and I like to judge dogs. I don't look at the other end of the lead. The other end of the lead really has little interest for me. You try and I think that's the advice everybody should be given, and it was the advice I was given. Though I still remember whenever I was going to judge, I mean, my dad had said to me years ago, don't get yourself into that I'll show game, you know, it's, oh, no, find something else to do on a Saturday. But needless to say, I went ahead. But that's, I think you've got to be honest. And you also have to know your breed standards. It's all very well with your own breed. And even then you read your breed standard before you judge. Well, I do. Once you start judging other breeds, I think you've got to know your breed standard before you go into the ring. I think it's, I mean, it's an insult to exhibitors to expect them to pay good money to bring their dogs under you, especially in this day and age, whenever it costs so much to go to dog shows, to go and show under you, and you don't know the finer points of the breed. You know, you haven't, and you don't know what the breed was in existence for. And if somebody asks you, why did you put my dog second? And you stand there like a dummy and you don't know why. I mean, that to me is, you shouldn't be judging if that's your attitude.
And I think you make a valid point that particularly in bigger breed, you're not going to please everybody.
No.
And if you go and say you're going to do this, forget it. Walk out of the ring. You know.
Absolutely.
And so, do you think it's important for aspiring judges to ask questions of breeders and established exhibitors and experienced judges?
Absolutely. The only problem is I think very few of them do. That's me getting the back of the neck. I think a lot of the have I lost you?
No, keep going.
It's okay. I think a lot of people now more recently come into showing seem to have the attitude that the first thing is, right, they go into the ring, the first thing they want to do is, oh, well, I'll make my dog a champion. And then after that, the next thing is, I'm going to judge. And it's really only a matter of getting into the ring, getting themselves dressed up, into the ring, and I haven't a clue. I mean, unfortunately, I have watched first-time judges, and I have thought, oh, crikey, why did you take that on? You shouldn't be judging. It's like a rite of passage where one thing is expected to come after the other. I mean, I remember you have to serve your time in dogs. You have to.
Yes.
You've got to ask questions. And I mean, I remember whenever I started out, I was lucky with Joyce McKenzie because she talked as much as I did. I mean, I know that whenever it came to some of the other breeds, you sat at the feet of people who knew what they were talking about, or who you thought knew what they were talking about. And you didn't open your mouth. You just sat and listened to them discussing the dogs and discussing things after a show. And you just sat there and listened and learnt, took it all in. And I mean, it was a long time before you actually picked up the courage to ask a question in case they thought you were stupid, you know. But nowadays, I mean, a couple of years ago, I was actually tackled by an exhibitor in the ring and said, my dog's an excellent. Why did you not give it an excellent? I said, I gave your dog a very good. Your dog came in today with no grading. I said, I gave you very good today. And actually, well, it's an excellent dog. I said, well, that might be your opinion. All the other judges have given it excellent. I said, well, I'll tell you, I gave you very good today. And to be perfectly truthful, you were actually lucky to get a very good under me. End of story. So I thought, no, this is arrogance. And to be honest, I'm not going to criticise other judges, but I think sometimes, especially in Ireland and in minority breeds, I think excellence are thrown about like sweeties. And we, unfortunately, it's our system. But the trouble is, so many breeds are shrinking now. You know, you just don't have the numbers. Yeah. So there are some breeds where somebody brings in one dog in one breed, and 7 shows later, it's a champion. And then starting the next dog, and it's a champion. And they're learning nothing. They're not improving the breed. And I actually think it's quite pointless.
And just touching on that, there's a question that just came in from, in latter years, do you have a theory as to why entries are falling? And do you miss the point system?
I actually think we need to have some kind of extra qualifier or something to make it more competitive. Entries are dropping. I think entries have dropped all over the world.
Yes.
Breeds are, and certain breeds they're having an awful hammering. Well, I mean, we know yourself. There are certain breeds that have all of a sudden become fashionable breeds, and they're very much coming to the fore. Some of our traditional breeds are dropping off and dropping away very badly.
Very much so.
Why, I don't know. I think it's something that maybe is an expensive thing for a family to do.
Yes.
And very often our in Ireland, to show people we're all they're all family people, and I think maybe you get to the stage where whenever their kids are young, they can just pick them up, put them in the back of the car, and say, right, you're going to a dog show. But once those kids get up a wee bit, I think then they find other things to do. The kids always want to play football or whatever, and the parents cannot drag them screaming to dog shows, and I think that's possibly part of the reason. I don't really know.
I think that's probably a large part of the reason.
Yeah, but I personally think the standard of dogs, of breeds, has fallen.
I'm not saying I agree with that.
In some breeds has gone down quite badly.
But that happens, Joyce, every so often, that breeds hit a lean patch, and other breeds will get stronger.
Yes.
And then it will reverse again.
Big dogs also are not so popular now, but I would possibly put that down to the way people live now. People don't have houses with gardens anymore. They live in apartments. Therefore, your bigger breeds are possibly going to go down, and the smaller breeds will gain popularity.
Yes.
But it's the quality that I've noticed has gone down, and I believe other judges agree with me and feel the same way about it. Why, I really don't know. But once again, I think people don't think before the breed. they want their champion, they want their and they breed quite a bit. Maybe not quite for the right reasons, and then they're throwing a dog into the ring, and it's not up to it, but it's maybe in a small breed minority, numerically small breed, and once again it gets it manages to get the magic 7. It's a champion. It's then used as stud, and that's where you see the downward slope. And I really believe it's because people aren't thinking before they mate their bitch. They should mate. For starters, they should think, why am I mating my bitch? Am I mating my bitch because I want something better than what I have? Or am I just mating my bitch to put money in the bank?
Yes. Yes.
And I've seen too many sides of that recently too. Well, I mean, we know we're in diffs with this pandemic because obviously I'm sure you've noticed it. I've had phone calls for Aussies, not phone calls, sorry, emails and messages for Australian Shepherds, for Tibetan Terriers.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all know that some of the breeds have just really taken off, Frenchies and things. And I mean, people are asking mad prices for them. Now, I'm not saying the show people are doing it, but, we're going to see the end of this. It's the show people that are going to suffer because they're going to be the breed clubs who are going to be trying to rehome these dogs that people have used as
exactly. People aren't. It is. You're quite right, because I mean, the phone in this house is non-stop with Yorkshire Terrier inquiries and Bichon Frise inquiries, and people seem to assume because they're at home, oh, we're going to get a dog. But what happens when this is all over and they go back to work? They're not thinking.
Right. And the dog chews the kitchen door. And
in reality, very few reputable breeders are. I know there's no Yorkshire Terrier exhibitors breeding right now because you can't get people to come and see the pups, and you can't allow them in your house, and you can't vet them. So it's. But
unfortunately, Joe down the road's doing it.
Yes.
I've looked at some of these. You come up against this sort of, I don't know, some of the websites that I don't honestly look at very often, but people will send me them and say, look at this, And I mean, there's an awful lot of breeding going on in Ireland. Never mind anywhere else. I mean, and I know up here our animal shelters are full already.
Yeah, it's similar. It's similar down here, I think.
Yeah.
So, in terms of getting back to your judging, when did you achieve all breed status?
I think it was 2008. I'll get killed if I can't remember that. I think it was 2008. Yeah.
It would have been about that. And how many countries have you judged in? Because you've done quite a bit.
I honestly couldn't tell you the number because I don't count them. I've judged in all over Scandinavia and Europe, Australia, New Zealand, America, Eastern European countries. Okay. I genuinely don't count them. An awful lot, put it that way. And it has definitely enriched my life because I've met people that I would never have met before, all with a common interest, mostly we all love dogs. And I've seen some beautiful countries, and I've made friends,
Absolutely, yes.
Worldwide, and it makes such a difference,
Yeah.
I mean, we judged in Australia for, Jez did a skip, Jez did a cheapy job. When he went out to judge in Australia, he took me with him from a honeymoon. I ended up judging as well, actually, but that's we had a great time out there. But I mean, I'm still in touch with people that I met out there. Even today, looking at roses in the garden in outside Melbourne. Victoria. Friend of, she's Victoria's is a daughter of a lady called June Studestrom, and whose husband Lou sadly is no longer with us, but we stayed with them in Australia, and they were fabulous people who we've kept in touch all these years. And Victoria actually contacted us there earlier when the sun was shining. It was June's 90th birthday, I think, and we did a a high on the phone thing with her, which was lovely. But that sort of makes a difference. And I've enjoyed America as well. We're very lucky. Both of us we're all breeds American Kennel Club, which is very nice to be.
Very good, yeah.
And I've enjoyed trips to America. And lovely, just so many lovely places. And Norway I love, and the Norwegian people, and the same with Sweden and Finland.
That's because we're all basically Scandinavian.
Well, we're Celts of a nation, aren't we? Scandinavia, as I say, Holland, which I love. Too many places to actually sit down and name and count.
And aside from your own breeds, is there a breed you particularly like to judge, or just love to get whenever you're away?
I love Kerry Blues. I would have always loved a Kerry Blue, but I could never have presented it the way the really skilled groomers do. And
yes, there's an art form.
I think they're a smashing breed. But I mean, even back whenever the opportunity may have arisen, I couldn't add them. There'd have been bloodbath in this house.
And is there a fault that really irritates you when you're judging?
There's two things. I've a bit of thing about movement. I hate bad fronts. I really hate bad fronts, and unfortunately, I'm inclined to maybe give it away whenever I'm judging. I also hate to stand in the side of the ring, inside the ring, and see the dogs coming in under you, and you think, that's a cracking dog, that's lovely, beautiful group, massive coat, all this sort of thing. Then you put your hand on it, and the poor thing needs to be taken home, loved, and fed. And I hate that. You put your hand on it, and the poor soul is a wriggle of bones underneath, has probably never been exercised. It's probably lived in a kennel, or if it's a smaller dog, it's not allowed out of the cage in case it wrecks its coat. I have no time whatsoever for that. To me, dogs are first and foremost, where I'm concerned anyway, they're pets. Show dogs second. But they've got to be allowed to have a good life. And for people to keep weight off them for any reason, to me is an absolute, and I hate that. And it has happened on several occasions. It happened abroad once with a Tibetan Terrier that I thought was to die for. And beautiful coated, moved a dream, absolutely gorgeous, stylish dog. And I looked at it, the way we all do, you look and you see a dog coming, you'll think, that could be my winner. Got it on the table, put my hand on it. And I could actually have, put my both hands to, you know what I mean? The poor thing was a charity case, to be perfectly honest. But what do you do? I penalised the dog, and I told the owner in no uncertain terms that the dog was underfed, and not to ever bring a dog like that out to a judge. Coach nothing if you haven't got a body underneath it.
Absolutely. And critiquing. Do you like critiquing? Do you think it should be introduced more widely?
Yes, I do. Very much so. I think, apart from anything else, I think it and I mean proper critiques. I don't mean
absolutely
good mate, nice head.
Yeah.
Made a nice, nice overall appearance, move soundly, excellent. I mean, a critique is meant to be a critique. I mean, you're not to cut the tripe out of a dog if it's not good, but you actually, the whole idea, I would have thought, in critiques in the first place is if you know what you're talking about, and hopefully I do, with the breeds that I'm judging, is that I would try and point the owner in the direction of where they're going wrong or what their dog's faults are, And perhaps maybe by being honest like that, it'll maybe mean that they'll go out the next time and maybe get something a little bit better or closer to the standard or whatever. But it's got to be a proper critique.
Yeah.
But
I think people fail to realise that sometimes when they're judging that, all right, yes, mention all their good points, and every dog has their good points.
Yeah.
But particularly,
we'd prefer more rear angles. Would prepare this. Would whatever.
Yeah.
Needs more drive or whatever.
Particularly if you're going to give it a lesser grade than an excellent.
Yeah.
Don't wax lyrical about how good this dog is and then say it's a very good.
Yeah, well, you've got to justify your placing.
Yes.
And your grading. And I think it's a very good thing for somebody starting judging, that they have to actually, it means they've got to go and read the breed standard.
Yeah.
In order to give some kind of an intelligent critique, because especially abroad, I mean, exhibitors abroad are not stupid.
No.
Exhibitors they know their dog's faults. This is the thing. They may keep on showing that dog. They know that dog's fault, but they will keep on showing because they possibly only have the one dog. Yeah. And they're going to keep on showing that dog. They understand that the dog has a fault, but they're looking for guidance as much as anything else. And
particularly particularly in Scandinavia these days, you have to be so careful when you're doing your critiques, because they are actually downloaded and
they go on
the website immediately. The minute you give your critique, it's up, and you can see the people outside the ring reading their critiques, and you think, so you have to be so careful.
I just wait. If I'm away on my own, I just wait for my phone. When I get a comment, you took a long time to get round to giving an excellent there, and that breed did it.
Yeah.
You know who that's from, of course.
The CK system. Do you like that? Would you like to see that introduced here?
I actually think it's not a bad idea, the CK system, and I think it might. I actually would like to see it in Ireland, because I think we're a very small country here, and we're a very small band of exhibitors. Everybody knows everybody else, and I think too many people here, especially whenever they're starting off, they don't want to fall out with their friends. They don't want to get an earful from somebody. They don't want to see somebody turning away from them at the end of the day and not speaking to them afterwards because, you didn't give my dog an excellent. I think CK is good because you can actually, those are the dogs that you're going to consider for your Green Star or your CAC or whatever it may be. And I think that's a very good idea. An excellent grading is not getting a CK, but getting an excellent should make people happy without having to have a whole razzmatazz about it.
But there is an argument that I've had over this system that if they're giving out too many excellents, then they're going to give out CQs to everybody or CKs to everybody. So
no,
it's not going to.
I think that's personally it's rubbish. And where I'm concerned, I know I'll give excellence if I feel a dog is an excellent dog. It might be ready for the CAC or whatever on the day.
Absolutely.
But I'll give it. I'll give it an excellent. All right, but my CK quality, I would sometimes would give 1 in a class. Yeah. I mean, I learned the lesson a long time ago. Turning around in shock and discovering that I'd been far too kind to everybody, and I had a ring full of dogs, and my steward didn't know what class started and where the class started and where it ended and who was first, and I thought, oh, never again. Yeah. It was a rude awakening, I can tell you, because I was being too kind, and being kind is one thing, but being too kind is. It can be as damaging, actually, as anything else, because you get people, then they get false impression of their dogs. And all right, they can be speaking to you at the end of the day, but you haven't actually accomplished anything in the day by going into the ring and handing out excellence, as I say, like they're dolly mixtures. I think CK quality is a good thing, and I would like to see it. I would like to see it introduced. Actually, I'd like to see it tried in Ireland anyway.
Yes.
I know we've got a problem where critiquing is concerned because we don't have the personnel.
Yeah.
But I do think it would be worth trying it at our international shows.
Yeah.
There must be some way to do it, you know.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
And touching on exhibitors and reading critiques, etc., how do you deal with the irate exhibitor?
You really don't want me to tell you that, do you?
Don't mind your language.
I judged once upon a time. I judged in Zadar, and I was doing Church House. Now they're a breed I love, actually. Like a very, very nice breed. They're great characters. And I had this gentleman, in inverted commas, come in with the red chow, and that was fine. I looked at it, and it looked back at me as much to say, "I'm going to have you." And I thought, well, I'm not for this at the moment. And I said to the guy, "Show me the dog's bite, please." And he looked at me and shrugged his shoulders, so he didn't understand. So I sort of, mouth, please. So he put his hand down to the dog to show me his mouth, and the dog nearly took the hand off him. His own dog nearly bit him. So I thought, I'm definitely not going in here. It proceeded then to start having a go at him and threatening me and all the rest of it. And I said to my steward, will you remove that dog from the ring, please? Don't want to have it anywhere near me. And it was going to start causing trouble with the other dogs as well. Oh, would he go out of the ring? No way would this man go out of the ring. Eventually, I walked right up to him, into his face, and I said, "Get out of my ring, please, sir." So eventually he went out of the ring, but of course I'm trying to carry on judging. He's standing outside the ring, giving it this, right, left, and centre. So I did, I must admit, with my steward beside me, go across to him and suggest that perhaps he would be better leaving the area of my ring. Perhaps not quite in those words, but he did get off. He got offside. He was from Russia.
All right,
Silly man. I run a mile the next time I see him anyway. No, I mean, you get. If I get an Irate Exhibitor, I would usually normally just say, the reason I put your dog such and such is read your, for starters, there's your critique, read it.
Yes.
Your dog's not a lump of rubbish at all. Your dog is far too fat today, for starters, and it's rolling in the front. Take it home, get a bit of weight off it, no problem. Or it's mouth wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they ask for my opinion, for better or for worse. I gave them my opinion in the nicest way I could possibly do it, because I don't write nasty critiques, and I love dogs. I love every dog I put my hands on. I mean, I enjoy judging dogs because I enjoy working with dogs, having my hands on dogs, and talking to doggy people as well. And so I mean, there's no point in not being kind whenever you're judging.
Absolutely.
But if you get some twit comes up to you and says, "My dog's this and my dog's that," and congratulations, sir. You won best of last one. Many congratulations today. You're very good. End of story.
And in terms of your judging career, what's your biggest achievement?
I don't know. Do you know something? I can't remember my first best in show. Where did I do best in show for the first time? I can remember. Of course I can remember. I judged best in show at Dundalk for the first time. And that was a lovely day.
Yeah.
And the sun shone that day. And I had a very, very nice lineup for best in show. And I ignored the people who told me what to put up. I ignored them. I did.
That didn't happen, surely.
The thought, I think that was when somebody suddenly discovered that Joyce Manton wasn't a mug. And I do remember, oh Lord, I can't remember the show name now, but that's just because my head's gone. I put a black Labrador up. It was actually Chris, I discovered later on, it was Chris and Angela Hancock's Black Lab. And if somebody had said to me before I went into the ring that day that I was going to give Best in Show to a Black Labrador, I would have said, for heaven's sake, catch yourself on.
Yeah.
But he was lovely.
Yeah.
I've judged Best in Show, and near Finland, I can't remember the name of the blinking place. Imatra. Yes, sorry. I just had to ask my better half there for a hint. Imatra. No, I remember it because it was the snow was on the ground, icy, and they had given Des was there as well, and they'd given us a lovely room with a big balcony, and I smoked in those days, and I was able to go out in my balcony with my drink, and I used the icicles along the top of my balcony for ice for my drink. And I always remember that. At the show, I had the most spectacular standards giant schnauzer under me. Absolutely fantastic dog. And I prayed that it would come through to me in Best in Show, but actually it didn't.
Not always the way.
If it didn't come through. But an almost a spectacular mini schnauzer came through.
Mm-hmm.
And it was from Russia, as was the giant. And it was a Russian black min schnauzer, and it was gorgeous. And that's what I put up. Mm. And that was memorable for several reasons, because I felt very, very privileged to have my hands on the giant schnauzer to start with, and the min. Yeah. They were both gorgeous dogs and presented. Oh, superb presentation! Absolutely gorgeous dogs. So that would be one I remember. But there's loads and loads and loads of them. You know. And
a more serious topic. As a journalist and a dog person, first and foremost, your opinion of the issues surrounding certain breeds that have perceived health issues or health problems, and how you feel the kennel clubs are dealing with this issue?
It's a complicated one, actually, because yes. I think unfortunately governments have become involved in some countries in this, especially with the bracky dogs.
Yes,
governments have become involved, and they don't know what they're talking about. In that they don't have any understanding of what's happening. You've got obviously the problems with the breathing and so on, but I mean, I think quite a few kennel clubs have been doing their level best to get to encourage people breeding wise to go in the right direction with many of these breeds. And you'll know yourself, whenever you judge in certain countries, you're actually asked to make comments on the back after you've judged those particular breeds as to sort of what they're like. I think we have a problem in that we have an anti-dog movement throughout Europe. And they are finding opportunities to get at show dogs because of their perceived health issues, and they're blowing these up. But I mean, there's one particular organisation. It's never off the internet. I mean, you get stuff sent through to in your box, in your email box every other day, and I really don't know where anybody can go with that. I mean, it's all very well saying, yeah, you're right about it. Well, obviously we're all static at the moment anyway, because we've no shows, so we're not really writing much or doing anything at the moment. But I don't honestly see I don't see where the influence can come from.
Do you think the kennel clubs and in particular FCI and the larger kennel clubs are doing enough in terms of lobbying politicians, etc.? I mean, it does appear it's being left to individual kennel clubs who may not have the same influence?
I don't think the FCI as a body can be expected to do it, because at the end of the day, I mean, I used to think that the FCI made all the laws for us all. And if somebody was banned in one country and they turned up at another show, that the FCI would sort it out. But in fact, I mean, they don't have anything to do with that. The FCI are more like a judging, a judging organisation.
I don't know about that, because I mean they're changing standards. Their standards commission is changing standards within breeds quite a bit these days.
Yeah, but those are usually guided by the country of origin column. I think. I mean, like, who would the FCI go to lobby? I mean, could we expect the FCI to, say, for sake of argument, lobby the Irish government on our behalf or the British government on our behalf? I don't think that would work.
No, well, perhaps Europe.
And to be honest, I think the problem about getting political about it is that most of these governments would consider that they have more to do about what they would consider to be more important things than dogs. Yes. And I think we have a lot of trouble finding anybody who's prepared to actually stand up in Parliament in any country and say, you know, what about the carry on with these dogs and let's get this sorted and so on. I mean, I think there has been, obviously, the Dutch Kennel Club has been putting, or the Dutch government have been sort of getting involved. But yes. I mean, this surely is because they have been made aware of it by people who like these organisations who that I would consider to be anti-dog, to be perfectly truthful. I mean,
I think they're anti.
Just anti-dog. They're anti-show dog. Sorry, they're anti-pedigree dog. Yes. Anti-pedigree dog.
Yes.
They would have us all have mixed breeds. Which unfortunately, of course, are now the ones that are making the money in the dog world. That's beside the point.
Probably the least healthy.
Well, exactly. I mean, yeah. I think the show people in general, we test for our dogs hereditary problems and try to do something about it, which governments obviously don't even recognise. I mean, I genuinely, I could just imagine putting a letter in to a White House in the Hill here, about dogs, and I would think we'd probably be lucky if we even got an acknowledgement. Never mind anything else. They're all too busy with other things that, in their opinion, would be much more important.
Yes.
I mean, we consider the matters in dogs to be very, very, very important, as do our cousins all over the world. But in fact, we're a very small body of people whenever you consider it.
Yeah.
You know, look at us. I mean, in Ireland, for starters, north and south, we are probably a body of about 600 or 700 people who actually make up the dog going.
Yes, that's fair.
North and south, all of Ireland. If you're lucky, all right, you've husband and wives and that sort of thing. But if you look at it, the average sort of show seems to be was getting what sort of on average, if you're lucky, about 1,100 dogs. Those 1,100 dogs are owned by about 500 or 600 exhibitors.
True.
So we're a very small body to even try and make a mark on a government or anything like that. I mean, well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of the governments, I mean, their ordinary basic laws regarding dogs are archaic and disgraceful.
Yes.
So, you know, I can't see anybody lobbying them about the brachy problem or anything else, because they're not be a bit interested. I think it's something that we're going to have to just sort out for ourselves. Okay. And what we need are people to breed correctly.
Yes.
Not to breed for fashion.
That's a big ask, yeah.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean,
that sort of money.
Well, I mean, I remember sitting many years ago at a show in Scotland. I think it was Working Breeds of Scotland then. And a guy from the English Kennel Club called Mike Stockman, who was also a vet, was sitting there, and I was talking to him, and I said, why? Because I was German Shepherds then and nothing else, and we started hip scoring before I think any other breed. We were very fortunate to have Malcolm Willis, whom older shepherd people in all over Ireland will know or will have known. And when Malcolm started the hip scoring system, and that has been with the Kennel Club in London ever since, and every pedigree is endorsed. You know, every
Yes.
if you have pups, the pups registration is endorsed with the sire and the dam's hip status. I said to Stockman at the time, why do you register dogs who have bad hips? Because by registering them, you're allowing them to be bred.
Mm-hmm.
He says, well, that's our livelihood.
Yeah.
And I was livid. I mean, I'm naive enough to not to think, not to realise that that's the only way they were in existence, more or less, because they're a registration body, and that's how they made their money. The same as the IKC, where the basic income must be registrations. But I took it very hard, the fact that I happened to know that a bitch that had a horrendous score had a litter of pups.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he says, we can't turn around and say to people, no, you can't have a litter of puppies, or no, we will not register your puppies. You see, I would be a Hitler like that, to be honest. I would be inclined to say, right, once you're certain I'm not registering your pups. Well, I mean, I think clubs have a lot to, actually breed clubs have a lot to do.
Agreed.
When it comes to health. And I think breed clubs should be dealing first and foremost, encouraging people who come in. We all know our dogs' hereditary problems. I mean, it's at the end of a computer, and if somebody doesn't know anything about the problems and announce to somebody that they're going to mate their bitch, a little bit of advice would not go amiss. And I mean, I think most clubs also have God, I've forgotten the name. Code of ethics. Yeah. And that sort of thing should be included in the code of ethics. And if somebody breaks the code of ethics, they should be, in my opinion, published suitably. Yeah. Because the health of the dog is paramount.
Yeah, agreed.
I would think. But I don't think there's enough done. And that is where we can possibly get the better of the problems that are going on at the moment, is to say that, yes, we are responsible dog owners and dog breeders, but we are going to go take more of an interest in it, and let the kennel clubs also take more interest through the breed clubs and the registration system, and a lot more openness would not be a bad idea.
Yeah. And you and Des, over the years, have been heavily involved in breed clubs. I mean, you're show secretary of an all-breed championship show. Des is show manager of an all-breed champ show. You've both been involved in Belfast championship show, and at club level, etc. How important do you think it was? I also skipped the fact that you both you are currently a member of the governing body of the Irish Kennel Club, the Ard Comhairle.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is for people to give something back to the sport, and do you think enough people do it?
I think every I could have a real go here. I actually would be very, very hard on people who sail along to a show, mutter and complain because they can't get their car close enough to where they want to have it, like in the ring. Yes. And give out because the judge is an idiot because they didn't win, and then they stomp off home. But they're going to go to the show the next week. I think people like that. I think people, before they actually start showing dogs properly, certainly before the judge, should have to actually serve on a committee for a length of time. Okay. Where they can actually realise what it's actually like to run be at the organising end of running a dog show, because it ain't funny.
It's not funny.
And we are getting to the stage now where we're shortly going to run out of people, because we're all getting too darned old.
Sadly,
And I mean,
you are very close to the truth here.
The young ones don't want to work. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be saying it, but it's very true. They do not want to.
Are they encouraged enough, though, Joyce?
Pardon?
Are they encouraged enough?
Maybe you've got a point. Maybe they are not maybe encouraged enough. But then again, if you get somebody that comes up and is cheeky with you, I mean, I would be inclined to say, right, would you like to serve in this committee? Would you like to come on committee for a year? See what it's like to actually have to set up a show and run a show. Yeah. No, I will not indeed. I want to show my dog.
Yeah. There's an element of that.
You see, and I mean, I actually genuinely do think that some clubs are going to be in severe diffs.
Yes.
Very, very soon.
Yes.
Getting personnel to run a show. I mean, a lot of the All Breed Champ shows are run with a half a dozen people.
Yes.
And friends, dragging friends in to help them do that.
As you say, it's a lot of hard work.
They don't. None of them realise all the work there is running around trying to find a venue and then making sure that the venue's looked after so as you don't lose it.
Yes.
All the organisation trying to bring judges in from abroad. It just doesn't happen in a blink. And some people seem to think that you just click your fingers and the show appears. Yeah. And you go to the show, you show your dog, and then you don't even wait if that really, really annoys me about dog people now, young dog people. They come to the dog show, they show their dog. They don't win.
Yeah.
And you can't see their heels for dust.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember even when I had shepherds toward the end of my having shepherds and sort of getting the bobtail, I used to go and watch the groups, go around and watch the groups and stand and think to myself, I like that dog. I like that dog. I mean, I remember with Josie with her poems and people like that. And I learned a lot that way. And I would have stayed to the bitter end if I could. And that would have been whether it was Limerick or wherever. I would have stayed to the end if I possibly could. And that's how you learn. That's also how you learn about other breeds, is by actually watching them. A single-minded in your own breed and no other breed, you'll never learn, I don't think. You might want to judge and be an all breeds judge, which I would actually say to people, think twice before you aim for that, because it sometimes is not a blessing.
Nah. In some ways, yeah.
Some people want to climb a ladder so quickly.
You and Des would have been showing and judging throughout the height of the Troubles.
Yeah.
And I know from my own experience, and certainly Rita would regale me with stories of parties the night of Belfast, because it wasn't advisable to travel back to Dublin.
Yeah.
How much impact did the Troubles have, or did it impact on the dog show scene?
To be honest, it brought exhibitors from the north and the south far closer together. Yes. I remember on several occasions being standing at a show, and somebody would come around and say, I was talking to so-and-so, who's talking to so-and-so, there's a wee bit of trouble at the border. And the first thing that would happen would be that some of our friends from Dublin would say to us, listen, don't go home tonight. There's a bed in our house, you stay over. Because they were concerned about anything happening on the way home. And I actually think that the dog show people showed the way. We were probably one of the only organisations where people we carried on regardless, right through the Troubles, literally right through the Troubles. And there were some queer hairy, some right hairy occasions, I'm telling you, weren't very pleasant, but we kept going. We lost some dog people too, sadly, right at the beginning in the 70s. But we kept on going. And as I say, we had great friends, and it was great actually. Belfast show was the only time that any of us could actually, in those days, Belfast Champ Show was the only time we could actually return the hospitality.
That's not necessarily true, because I know Rita would say that she spent many an evening in your house, particularly
That's
if she
right.
had a Yorkie bitch that needed to meet her husband. It
was quite a handy spot for quite a few people. And they were all more than welcome. But as I said, it was probably the only opportunity we had to say thanks for the care that you gave us. But there was no bordering dogs, and I sincerely hope now there still is no bordering dogs, which is
one of
the sports which has that I think I'm very proud to be associated with.
I think you make a very important point there, that there was no border within dogs.
No.
All right, we're not going into nitty-gritty, but I'm sure everybody knew where everybody stood, but it never encroached on dogs.
Can I tell you something? None of us knew where anybody else stood. It was never brought up.
Yeah.
Politics was never. We never talked politics and dogs, funnily enough. Yeah. And nor dare I say it, the hairy subject of religion.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what church anybody went to.
Fascinating.
The only time we ever found out, sadly, was whenever there was a funeral to go to. But I mean, it just didn't actually come into it at all. I mean, we were just a gang of mad idiots that loved dogs and went all over the countryside showing dogs.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was. I mean, I know I have been accused of looking at the old shows through rose-coloured glasses, but I would defy those people again and say no. I'm not looking at the old days through rose-coloured glasses. Dogs have changed. The whole scene has changed, but then life has changed as well. Values have changed. People's attitudes.
Laws have changed.
Respect has changed. There's there's very little respect about anymore. I mean, we would have been terrified if we'd seen a guard coming home, driving. I mean, in those days there were no laws about partaking of a wee dram and driving. It didn't happen. But I mean, I think it's more lack of respect actually that seems to be endemic now, and the dog show scene has changed. It's not as friendly. There's a few more knives out.
I think it's less of a social sport than it used to be, but that is a large part down to circumstances.
It's down to a lot of things. We don't have a bar at the shows for starters. People come to the shows and they have their parties. But I think still, in the old days, a lot of people, they went to the show and they stayed. They were out for the day. That was it. And they knew people in other breeds. And if somebody had gone best of breed and they'd have gone and watched them in the group and supported them in the group. In fact, their own breed people would often have stayed as long as they weren't, as long as it wasn't going to be they're not on until 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
Yes.
A lot of them would have stayed and supported their own, we would have stayed and supported whoever went best of breed and German Shepherds or Old English Sheepdogs or whatever. And if you had a friend who had gone best of breed, you'd have supported them in the group. And that doesn't happen anymore, unfortunately. In the majority, people, once their breed's over, that's it, they're away. And that means the atmosphere is gone as well. Whereas I suppose the bar in the corner did help. There's no doubt about it. People said, and you celebrated a win or a lose.
Yeah.
But attitudes also changed.
And then you are widely accepted within the dog world as being a gifted canine photographer. So you are. No, don't tell you. How do you get that shot? And how do you know when you have it?
Well, you judge dogs to start with, you see. So I suppose at the end of the day, if a dog's standing, if a dog's not standing right, you don't take the shot. Simple as that. But also, I to be honest now, I mean, I like to try and find different it shows it's difficult, but I like to try and find a different place, a different spot to take a photograph, to have something a wee bit different. Yeah. I love going out with somebody, you know, with 2 or 3 of their dogs, and being able to find a nice turned up log or the edge of a river or something like that. Just something to get a wee bit of a different shot, because obviously with the paper advertising, you know, I've actually seen people taking a ruler to a photograph in an advert and saying, "Look, that dog's far too long," and I thought, "No, that is not nice." Honestly, I saw it happen once, and I always had that in my head. And if somebody's going to spend their money advertising with me anyway, I would always have said, "Look, what the 2 things you want to put in your in your advert, and that's your dog and you, because if you've got a boxer, photograph of a boxer, or a more extreme, if a black Labrador, could be any black Labrador, you need your face in that photograph."
Yes.
And you want it to be something that's quite memorable, that people actually, they're flicking through the paper and they're looking, that's a nice photograph. And then from there they'll go on and read. But I would always try and find spots for decent photographs if I have the opportunity to go out with people and do it like what they would call a shoot, I suppose. Yeah. And I would never, ever, ever publish a bad photograph of a dog in a group situation. I would do my tank. I just would not ever do that.
I think you do yourself a disservice, let alone the dog.
Oh, well, I mean, it's cruel. It's not fair. I mean, I've seen it happen where a bad photograph has gone in to a paper, and I mean, it's not right. Especially a dog that's won, maybe a group winner or something. Sometimes maybe dog doesn't want to stand. Dog's fed up standing, and the most difficult thing to do is to get 2 dogs to stand right at exactly the same minute. Yeah. So you're doing the double group photograph, first and second.
And then lightening things up there. 4 dinner guests that you must have at a dinner.
I thought about this earlier on and I can't remember now. I have. Well, I tell you, no. For a bit of crack.
Yeah.
I think doggy crack. It would have to be Harry O'Donoghue.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he's argumentative, like I am.
Yes.
Mary McAleese.
Okay.
Because she's a lady that I have come to respect when I've gone into what she has done since she was president. Very determined lady with no sides to her whatsoever. I think she's
absolutely
quite some lady.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Oh, yes. Hans Vandenberg.
Oh, absolutely.
Des and I actually had a whole week in Hans's company in Zadar, actually, because you could only go out on a Wednesday and come home on a Wednesday when you were judging on a Saturday and Sunday, and it was great. And we spent one hilarious week with
absolutely
and his partner, and he is great crack. Fun to be with. A real scream.
Yeah. One more.
What's that? 3?
That's 3.
Andrew. Or Marion.
Marion Spelman was a lady I loved to bits.
Mm-hmm.
She stayed here and she had us in stitches.
Yeah, she was lethal.
Absolutely. I loved her dearly, but I suppose I've got to have people that could be here.
Not necessarily.
Sure, Andrew. Yeah.
Can I have a spare as well then?
Go on. Andrew
Brace.
Yeah. Ah, yes.
Because whenever my cookery goes wrong, Andrew would just do everything. I'm always last minute. I'm always last minute Annie. And whenever it comes to cooking, I'm always late. So I would just have to have Andrew there to say, Andrew, Wednesday if that's ready yet. He would just take over anyway, and he's good crack. A bit of fun, a bit of severity, you know. So I think that would be my lot.
Well, you got 4 and a spare.
Uh-huh.
I think Andrew would like to be known as your spare, but
or a very talented spare now. He actually gives recipes now.
I know.
Recipes on Facebook.
Some of the stuff he photographs on Facebook looks absolutely divine.
Absolutely. This presentation is superb.
Well, moving on to your funniest or most embarrassing moment, and I can always remember you in Clochran before it was actually finished, trying to take photographs in a thunderstorm at the World Congress. When we were proud of our centre.
Yes, absolutely. That was, I'll never forget that week as long as I live, because we went to, that was a fantastic week. That World Congress was phenomenal. I mean, I wish some of the younger ones coming into Dogs Now had actually experienced that.
Yeah, I think it has to go down as one of the Irish Kennel Club's proudest moments, or it should do anyway.
Absolutely.
Great week.
But the show my husband spoilt the dinner in the Royal Hospital on me. We were all done up to the nines down below in the underground bar prior to going up to the dinner.
Black tie, I
believe. Parade of Champions as well. It was the Parade of Champions, wasn't it?
Yes.
And Des decided to collapse because his mother-in-law had actually tried to murder him because she'd given him Voltarol for a sore knee, which he unknowingly took and didn't realise that he was couldn't take aspirin, and he collapsed bleeding internally in the bar down below, and we're all in his dinner suit and we're all dressed to the nines, and he had to go and do that. But anyway, I still remember.
Delayed dinner.
I don't know. Well, he ended up in hospital. I remember Ethna Cleary turning around to Hughie Kelly, who was to show her Glen of a Mile that night. I remember him hauling the white dinner jacket off poor Hugh, standing there, rolling it up in a wee ball and putting it under Des's head whilst we waited for the ambulance.
Yeah.
So he was carted off to James's Hospital, and I was duly. That was the end of me. I went to the dinner. I went to the hospital and not the dinner. But of course, I didn't have my sidekick. I had an old English sheepdog to show on the Saturday, and also cover it, and also all on my Onio, and it was at Clochran, which it was July, and it lashed it down. It was like a mud bath. I stayed at Claran and Moggs, and they were so good. They were great. But we went to the show. Julie showed Dazzle in the heavens opened. I had a drowned rat of a dog. I went inside, taking photographs, doing anything. It was totally and utterly impossible. But I still remember the roof in the bar wasn't actually quite finished.
Yeah.
And I always remember the boys saying, "You don't need any water from the bar. Just hold your glass up on the natural rainwater for your whiskey," which was a great thing. But that was the start of that was the Irish. I mean, that was us with the only kennel club in Europe with our own venue. Yeah. We were all proud as punch.
I think I think
and we got a great kick out of that actually. In lots of ways, in other places, we took great pride in the fact that we had our own. At that stage, I was involved with juniors across.
Yes, of course.
The kennel club across the water, and I was delighted to go to the kennel club across the water whenever we had our own venue as well. Oh no, it was. Cochrane was a great spot. We're very lucky to have it. But it was great in those days to have it. Because we had indoors for a change.
Absolutely.
We used to have the shows out in sort of schools and football pitches and rugby pitches and GA clubs and everything else. Well, of course, places like that have become less welcoming to the dog people now anyway, so at least we've got our own home at Clough.
Yeah. So, if you could be transported to any other country, is there anywhere else you'd like to be? Or are you happy where you are?
If you could warm Ireland up, I would be a really happy one.
Good luck with that.
Do you know, I've seen more.
You're quite right there, actually.
I don't think there's anywhere else in the world any more beautiful than Ireland is. And funny, just recently through Facebook and pings on my phone that drive me potty, I go on and I look and I'm seeing some photographs that people are taking around when they're walking their dogs and taking the dog. And realising just how beautiful Ireland is. Yeah. You know, the scenery is
north to south.
Die for. Absolutely beautiful. But I mean, I've been seeing an awful lot around Bray recently with a certain gentleman with a certain sheepdog has been given us Patrick's photographs. Some of them are absolutely wonderful. And Bella's a great wee poser. She was posing on on an old film set there. I noticed last week sometime sitting up on a what was the remains of a helicopter, I think. Yeah. But you know, whenever you look at some of the scenery, it's absolutely gorgeous. Really is. I think Ireland, but with the oven turned up a wee bit, would be really ideal. But then again, if that happened, would have to share it with too many people because it all comes in as well.
We'd see. I have a recurring commenter in GSPs from, now let me see where he's from. Vegan, Vejen.
Vegan.
2017, he gave his GSP BOB at a young age, and it hasn't looked back. This guy, I don't see a name, so he's absolutely regaling your judgment.
Very nice indeed. That's lovely. I'll try and.
Joyce, if you can write your epitaph, what would it be?
Sorry, I've just. If you'd excuse me for a minute, I'd like to go and slap somebody here. I got a snigger from the other end of the kitchen. What would it be? I'll give you two. A lot of people who know me would understand whenever I say in a minute. In a minute.
Yes. Because
apparently my minutes last hours. I'm always going to do something. I'll be there in a minute. Yeah. I'll do this in a minute. I don't know what my epitaph would be. I would like to think that it would be thought of.
You could have given it some thought. I mean, for God's
nicely.
sake.
I thought about it. Oh, yeah, but you come up with all these ones. I mean, I actually wrote some down, but I don't know where I wrote them down because I forgot. I did my own thing.
Yeah.
I did my own thing, and I continue to do my own thing, and I will fight for something if I believe in it.
Okay.
Did my own thing. There you are.
Okay.
That'll make you happy.
Well, Joyce, it's been absolutely brilliant. It's flown past. My God, we've been on for an hour and a half.
You're joking?
That's a record. It's been great. The comments are coming through are brilliant. Thank you very much for taking the time out. And hopefully we shall, see you
again sometime
soon. In the meantime,
I don't know where to look on this. I don't know where to look on this thing. You see, whether I look at you or whether I look up above. And I've just realised that there's a camera up. There's a camera up above on this flaming computer, which is no doubt where I should have been looking all along.
Well, you have my heart. Thanks for taking the time out.
No problem. You're more than welcome.
Love to you. Love to Des. Stay safe.
And stay safe, everybody. All of you. All of you that are listening as well.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Good night.
See you soon.